Hi, you're listening to God, Ghosts, and Government, a weekly conversation with Senator Kim Jackson, where she'll reflect on her journey as an Episcopal priest, farmer, first-time state legislator, and much more. I'm your host, Sharitha J., and I'm honored to share this space with you. Let's begin. Hey, it's your girl Sharitha J, and we're back for another season of God, Ghosts, and Government, where we get to talk to Senator Kim Jackson.
Hey Sharitha, it's good to see you, and hello to everybody else out there. It's really exciting to be able to do this both on a pod and on a camera thing. I know nothing about technology, but that's why I'm not on Technology and Sciences Committee, so it's all good.
Well, we're going to get into those committees, but we're trying something new. For our diehard fans, they know that usually we do audio, which we will, but this way you guys get to check in with Senator Jackson. We're actually coming to you from her office just across from the state capitol.
Yeah.
So
welcome to my office, guys.
Well, you can't see it all, but it's nice. And thank you for inviting me into your space. You know how we do. Let's get into it.
All right, Sharitha J, what you have for me this week?
I want it all because look, we're getting started. This is your second term?
Yeah, that's right.
So you're seasoned a little bit. How does that feel?
Yeah, I'm a little salty, I guess. I actually have been feeling a little salty this week.
It's only the beginning of session, so you're already salty.
Feel a little salty sometimes, but no, it's good to be back, and it's good to have an office, which my freshmen, I'm not a freshman anymore.
You're not a freshman.
We are still very used to, so Senator Merritt, Senator Halpern, and I, we are still used to referring to ourselves as the freshmen. But we are the sophomores. There are only 3 of us, and we have 4 freshmen.
Only 3.
Right, because Senator Michelle Al, is now Representative Michelle Al. She's in the House now. But don't worry, the Fab Four is getting together for dinner on Wednesday. Okay. So we would have a Fab Four reunion for sure. But we have 4 new freshmen. Okay. So a new Fab Four, I guess.
Okay, new Fab, but I mean, I can't say.
No, they're not Fab yet.
Are they Fab? And I mean, I want to say you guys are the original, though I know Fab Four has already kind of been taken, but to me, you guys are the Fab Four.
We feel that way too. So, in fact, actually, what we now refer to ourselves collectively is the Magnificent 7. So 4 freshmen, 3 sophomores. We've made our own little caucus. They're even caucus dues.
Hold on.
Yes, we're together.
Break this down. Okay. Break this down, because I mean, I know we have a lot to get into. So already, second term, the Fab Four is no more. But you guys are sophomores. You're a little salty, even though we're only just a few days into session. But, I mean, can I just take a brief moment and share my saltiness with you?
Please do.
Just a little bit. As someone who has the honor to work across from the Capitol and support this great endeavor, what was up with the cannons this week? Anyone else?
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm sorry. It's not my fault. So, where were you when the cannons went off?
So, I happened to be across the street at 201 Washington, which is Central Outreach, serving our parishioners at Church of the Common Ground, when a loud boom, if you will, went off multiple times with no warning. So, what was happening over here? Because that's kind of scary being across from the Capitol and things are booming.
Sure.
And helicopters flying over.
They were flying in formation, though. Okay. That's important to know.
Okay.
So Wednesday when you were here, it was actually just the practice for the Thursday inauguration. So they actually did it again the next day. So I don't really know all of the histories of this at all. Okay. But at the inauguration, after Governor Kemp and all the constitutional officers were sworn in, there was a, quote, review of the troops. And the beginning of the review of the troops began with cannons firing. And I'm sure they fired like a significant number of times, like 7 times or something. I didn't hear that part. Oh, I'm sure it was probably like a 21 gun salute, right? I think there were 3 cannons. They fired 7 times. That's 21 times, right?
Okay, that's helpful.
But they did it 3 times. Like, they did it all at the same time. So they did it 7 times, all 3 of them together.
Yes.
I think.
So, okay, that's
helpful.
helpful.
And that was the beginning of the review of the troops. And then it was followed by the flyover of these helicopters, who I guess ostensibly are part of the military.
Right.
They flew over in eagle formation.
Wow.
And then we had the National Guard, the Georgia Defense Force, the air portion of the National Guard as well, and I don't know, some other beautiful people in uniform, and the governor reviewed the troops.
Okay. That sounds much better than what I was imagining was happening. So I'm glad to have a little insight from your perspective, because initially I expected mass panic.
Oh, well, I mean, so let me back up. On Wednesday, I was stepping out of the CLOB to walk across the street to the Capitol when the first explosion happened.
Okay.
And my body jumped. So no, I knew what to expect on Thursday. Okay. It startled me for sure on Wednesday.
Okay. Well, in case any of you were near the Capitol or the downtown area on Wednesday or Thursday, now you know that it was a reason for all of the booming, and what a great way to start off this particular session. So,
I mean, is it? I don't know. I was
with the bang.
Well, we did start with a bang. That is true. But I was just thinking about all of our Common Ground members, especially those who have been in war, who have PTSD, and I mean, when I walked out, it really felt like, if you listen to NPR and you hear the shelling and the bombing that's happening in Ukraine, that's what it sounded like here.
Yes.
And I've never been to war, but I was just immediately thinking about those who have been to war, and with no warning, especially. I imagine that it may have been triggering to some folks who were here downtown. So started out with a bang for sure. I don't know that it's the best bang, but it is a part of the pomp and circumstance of an inauguration.
Well, I don't know what it says that we rely on you so heavily over at Church of the Common Ground, because we had so much trust that we said, surely the good Reverend Senator will let us know if something's happening. So our folks kept on, and they had morning prayer and coffee. So, but thank you for it, because initially we didn't know. But so starting session off with a bang. Now, this is God, Goats, and Government. I'm sure Senator Jackson has a wonderful update for us. But tell us more. It's the first week.
Yeah.
The first week. So you started out with a bang. We have a new set of freshmen senators coming in. You were sworn in again.
I was sworn in. We get sworn in every 2 years. And so all of us, this time, because it wasn't COVID, we were sworn in on the floor collectively with our family members there, which I actually told the new freshmen was kind of unfortunate. When I got sworn in, because of COVID, I got to have my own private swearing in on the floor with Judge Charlie Bethel and my family that I brought with me. And unfortunately for the new freshmen, they had to share the stage with 56 of us.
Wow.
And so it was quite crowded. People brought their loved ones, spouses. Trina came with me, of course. And shout out to my Atlanta dad, David, who is also my treasurer and my counsel, my attorney, who I bring with me. But he was on the floor with me as well.
Very good. So I'm hearing that you're already giving some guidance to the new freshmen. What else are you have there been any pranks yet? I mean, I know it's the first week, but
no pranks. But I will say, before session started, so Sharita, if you remember when I was first elected, that first week, 2 weeks, we didn't know what was happening, right? We didn't know the rules. We just felt so lost. And so
there weren't any cannons going off.
There weren't any cannons, which I'm grateful for, but there also weren't any instructions.
Right.
So this year, the 3 of us from the Fab 4 who remain in the Senate, we actually held 2 trainings for the 4 freshmen. One was online, where we just kind of went through just some things that you should know, like hire somebody to help you as a chief of staff. Shout out to both my old chief of staff, Elizabeth, and my new chief of staff, Daniel. But then we brought them actually to the Capitol before all of the stuff happened, sat them at desks, and we practiced right? Like, here's how the buttons work. We called it to order. We did roll call. We kind of went through step by step by step so that the new freshmen would have some sense of what's happening.
Wow. You know, when I think about it, I mean...
And that's why we charge them dues.
There you have it.
I can explain why we charge dues later.
That makes sense. But no, you didn't have that.
I didn't have that. And that we, Nikki, Michelle, and Sonia and I, the Fab Four, we were just so keenly aware that we longed to know more when we started. And so it was our commitment that we would do better for the new freshmen. And we, at the beginning of the very first training, we asked the new freshmen to pledge to do this for the class that follows them. Wow. So we're going to hand over the torch, hand over the curriculum to the new freshmen for whoever comes afterwards, so that we can ensure that this type of training happens, so that people know. I mean, our new freshmen, they don't have an office, they don't have an assistant, like they don't have email, and we're already a week in. They don't have any of those things. But when they go on the floor, they've got some working knowledge of what's happening because we've done this training with them.
Wow. As someone outside looking in, you kind of imagine that these things just fall into place. But as you're listing it off, I just didn't think about the logistics around that, what's happening in the background. So this is super helpful for us to know that it's a lot of prep work going into session, let alone what this journey will bring over the next few months. So I'm glad that they have you and Senator Merritt and Senator... I was about to say Al, but she's gone over to the other side in the House. But Senator Halper and Representative Al now. So thank you for taking time to do that, because not everyone thinks to kind of sow those kind of seeds. Now, we are, again, week 1, checking in with new freshmen. What are some other exciting things that are happening? Because it sounds like you're already hitting the ground running rather.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a weird, slow start because there was a football game.
Okay.
Go Dogs. I gotta say that.
It's
Go Dogs.
Painful. It's painful to watch you do this.
What? I mean, did I do it poorly? What? I mean, Go Dogs. Did I need to do it with my right hand instead of my left hand? I don't know the rules here. Go Dogs. I am a paladin, okay? But anyway.
We've talked about this before.
We have. It's fine. So there was a football game on Monday night, which was the day that we're sworn in. And so we were sworn in. Things happened really quickly and we left. And then we did not come back on Tuesday because people had to fly to California. Okay. So it's been kind of slow. I feel like, though, this has been like... it's been this interesting week where I've actually played a lot of roles as a priest in this space, perhaps even more so than a legislator to some extent. So those of you who are watching, you'll know I'm wearing a collar today, which is very rare, but I'm wearing a collar in part because I provided both the invocation and the benediction at the King Day service in the Capitol. And then because Sharitha and I had the great honor and privilege of going to O'Hearn House, which is a supportive housing unit where we have several of our parishioners who now live inside. And so we went there to bless their houses, right? To bless their beds and their rooms and their space as they begin a life of being cared for inside. And so we did that this afternoon. But also just as... I feel like that my role has been one of pastor in terms of caring for my colleagues, right? I've got colleagues who are coming back who I haven't seen since they had loved ones who died. A number of legislators have lost brothers, and so just connecting with them on the floor and, continuing to reiterate my condolences. Of course, I called them when we first found out, but just following up from that, right? And just continuing to really lean into those gifts and skills that I have. I feel like I've leaned into those a lot this week.
Does it feel natural to just step into that pastoral role?
Yeah.
Especially in this setting?
Yeah, I mean, I know how to be a priest better than a senator, like, to be clear. I've been a priest for a long time. So
it is your second term. I get so 3 years going into year 3. So
yeah. So maybe like ask me at the end of this session.
Okay.
And I might begin to say like, oh yeah, I feel like a senator and a priest, you know. But right now it's like I'm a priest and then I'm like a senator, you know.
Well, for those who are watching, and of course I hope that you guys will take time to check us out on Spotify, Apple, and Google. This will be available for you to listen to as well, and on YouTube. But for those of you who are watching, as you know, Senator Jackson wears many hats, quite literally. And today she's wearing one of her nice brimmed hats. This is how we're able to spot her.
It's got a little brown on the other side.
So she is leaning into her fashion and her brand, as I like to call it. So I just want to point that out. We see you, Senator Jackson, quite nice headgear that you have on today, headwear. So for the people to see, but in wearing those many hats, one of the things that you've already jumped into this week, as I am to understand, is that you already know what committees you're on for this session?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I already know my committees, and I also know the entire calendar for the next 40 days.
What? Whoa.
Yeah.
What?
So remember, like you remember last year how we were like, are we going to be in session tomorrow? And I don't know. You know, all that.
Wow.
The first year where we was just like traveling blind, I'm like, I don't know when we're going to be done. We have the whole calendar, day 40, already on schedule. I know when Sunny Day is. I know when crossover day is.
Wow.
Like, basically, I know when the big parties are going to happen with the great food already. So that's exciting.
That's the most important part. That's the most important thing we can take away from here today. Knowing when the food will be served.
Are we not going to talk about like policy or... I think they're more important things.
I suppose. I mean, what? The goats.
And the goats.
I mean, the goats.
Yes.
Okay,
so my committees, I'm on ag.
Okay.
Which I asked for, of course. I'm on public safety, which I was on before.
Mm-hmm.
And those were 2 that I requested at the kind of top of my list because I wanted to remain on those committees. And then I also requested Health and Human Services. You probably remember, and for those maybe who are listening for the first time, I have the privilege of being the co-chair of the Mental Health Caucus on the Senate side, and a number of the mental health bills come through Health and Human Services. And so in order to be more engaged with that policy, I requested membership to the Health and Human Services Committee, and I am on it. So that's really exciting. And then the last committee that I'm on, it's a brand new committee. We don't actually know what exactly it's going to do. But it's children and families. So
okay.
I happen to really like children and families, so I feel prepared.
Now, did you request that, or was it offered?
It didn't exist. Like I didn't even know to request it. Like this is a brand new standing committee, so I was just appointed to it. As were 9 or 8 other legislators. None of us really. Nobody asked for it because we didn't know it existed.
Okay. So 4 committees. And tell us your thoughts. Because the beauty in being able to kind of archive this moment in your life and for others to get an inside view, I like to go back and see where we started and where we end up by the end of the session. You guys see where all the energy is high, spirits are good, even though Senator Jackson said she's already a little salty. But how
can I explain why I'm salty?
Please.
Okay. I am salty because the freshmen don't have an office. I mean, I know when I started, I had an office and it had no furniture in it and just had a laptop sitting on the floor. But it did have a laptop. And I mean, I had access to email. The freshmen don't have that. They can't even get to their email where a weekend. So I'm very salty about that. They're just kind of roaming around, visiting with us sophomores, and that's great. But they need an office. And so I feel salty about that. Yeah. I feel quite some type of way about how committees were assigned. I happen to have a really great committee. But there are many of my colleagues who were were taken off of committees where they were really powerful and strong voices, and were placed on less powerful committees, basically because the majority party didn't want to hear those strong voices in those spaces. And so I feel really salty about that as well. So, you know, it's been a great start, but there's also some not so great things that leave me feeling like, come on.
Okay. And it feels like you're also giving us quite possibly a little bit of foreshadowing how this session may go. However, let's show up and see. So a little bit of saltiness, but I'm also hearing your appreciation in naming. Again, I'm still quite astonished that you guys have an actual calendar.
Yeah, that's huge. That is huge, and I'm very grateful. Please hear that in my voice.
Yeah. Indeed. Please keep us posted, as I know you will, on the freshman class that's come in. I'm hoping to get their offices soon in an email, because that's important. That's how your constituents are able to reach out to you.
That's right.
So
that's right. Well, we'll get them on the pod, since you know, we're here doing it in NCLOB, which is the Coverdale Legislative Office building. So we'll get them to peep in at least for a few moments on the pod.
I think we can make a little room.
Yeah.
What you guys think? Okay, Senator Jackson, so many just exciting things are happening with the start of this session. What other updates do you have for us?
Yeah, I want to get back to what we're doing as a collective with the Magnificent Seven. That's who we are now. Sophomores, 3 sophomores, 4 freshmen.
Okay.
So last year, as you, those of you who heard, know that the Fab Four, we worked together. We had our interns really coordinated. We shared reading of the bills, and we really worked as a kind of cohesive unit, so that on crossover day and signing day, I mean, we had a spreadsheet that was color coded, right? Yeah. But every bill we knew how we were going to talk about. So this year, we've invited the freshmen to join us in that endeavor, and we've created the Magnificent Seven Caucus. Okay. It's not really a formal caucus, it's an informal caucus, right? And
gotta start somewhere.
And all of our interns will be put together in a pool, and we actually hired somebody to help manage those interns to make sure that we have interns and some of us in every single standing committee that the Senate has. And so that's why we charge dues, if you will. Everybody put in the pot. We invited the freshmen to pay $250. We as sophomores wanted to take the lead and pay $500. And so we now have a coordinator for all of our interns to make sure that we know what's happening.
No, I'm fascinated by this, because you guys are developing a system within the system so that it ideally will help the larger system work a little bit more effectively. And I think it's important for people to be able to get this behind the scenes view of just how much you have to do in order to make things work.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, there's so much content that comes, right? And, you know, when ag is meeting, then the regulated industries is meeting at the same time, right? Or when, you know, public safety is meeting, so is health and human services or whatever. And so we as individuals cannot be in all places at the same time. But with our powers combined, you see what I'm doing here? The Magnificent Seven, with our powers combined, we're able to be in all places at all times, and to really know what's happening, so that when things do get to the floor, we know what was talked about in committee. We know the problems that were highlighted or the things that were lifted up, because we've got a comprehensive form that every intern fills out for every single committee meeting for every bill. Yeah. Wow. So it's going to be great content. And yes, we will share that with the larger caucus, because we do understand that together we are all better, and we're just creating more supplemental resources to help us.
I think that's a fantastic idea, and I'm looking forward to seeing how these seeds you guys are sowing, that's how I see it, what fruit it brings, because you can't tell me that you don't know how to teleport. I don't know how. I feel like you're in multiple places at the same time. Sometimes I have the good fortune to stand in and pretend, but somehow you make it work. So this is important in recognizing that not everyone can teleport, not everyone, you can't be in two places at the same time. And it's important to have all the information you need so that you can make the best educated or informed decision. So I think this is a wonderful idea.
Yeah, we're really excited and feel like this is a path forward as the Democratic caucus grows and we get closer and closer to a majority. We want to exercise those muscles of being well coordinated, well informed, ready to really stand up as a majority. And so this is practice for us, right? Like we are practicing getting better so that when it's our turn to take over, you'll have an informed, strong, Democratic caucus.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, to our listeners and our viewers, we've gotten in. We started out with plenty of government. It is God, goats, and government, but we've jumped right into the government aspect. And Senator Jackson has touched on some of that God piece and how she's feeling a bit more pastoral in the beginning of session. But really what I've been waiting on is your barnyard update. I want to know about the goats. I want to know how things are doing in the barnyard. What's been happening on that end?
Oh, Sharitha, thank you for always asking about the animals. Sadly, the biggest update we have is that Carolina, who was one of our first goats, we got two goats at the beginning, one named Georgia, which is where Trina was born, and one named Carolina to signify South Carolina, where I was born. And on election day, Carolina died very peacefully after somewhat of an extended illness. And so deeply sad by that loss, saddened, but also really grateful. We had Carolina for 9 years. And we got her as a baby. I'll tell this story really quickly. So we got Carolina as a 3-4 month old kid. And I don't know if you know this, Sharitha, but goats' vocal cords sound like actual human babies.
Okay.
Yes, like when they're, especially if they are like really upset and when they're crying, they actually sound like a human baby. And so at the time, Trina and I lived in town. Like we lived in Eastlake where we had like neighbors that were close. We only had a quarter of an acre. So we have this baby kid who was out in the back who's crying because Georgia, who we brought with her, hated her and was just like chasing her around. And so the very first night, I was terrified that the police were going to come because they could hear a baby crying. Right? So the neighbors are going to call. And so we actually took Carolina inside. And I just remember one of my earliest memories and fondest memories of Carolina was just holding her and trying to get her to just calm down in the floor of our living room so that she would stop crying and DFACS wouldn't be called on us.
Which is important.
Which is very, very important. So Carolina, I am glad that she's hopefully in the great barnyard of the Lord. How about that? The great barnyard of the Lord. She was a great goat. She was our milk goat as well. She gave us milk freely and without the additional burden of kids, which was really a gift. Yes, she naturally lactated spontaneously on her own.
But hadn't had any...
No, didn't have any kids. She just gave us milk. Raw milk, by the way, for those of you who remember last year.
Wow.
Unpasteurized milk, because that's how it comes out of here. And she was just, she actually hated other goats, but she loved people and was definitely one of our most gentle, will lay her head on your shoulder kind of goat. So Trina and I gave her a beautiful little ceremony and took her on a little carriage ride around the barnyard for all the other animals to say goodbye to her before we lay her to her final rest. But that is how barnyards work. That there is life, there is joy, there is dancing, and there is death. And so we grieve that. And the last thing I'll say about that is that since Carolina's passing on November 8th, which was a day of grief, I think for many of us in Georgia, the barnyard has been kind of wild. Like the dogs don't quite know what's going on. The goats seem to be in like kind of a topsy-turvy. All of the kind of pecking orders changing with the chickens. It's pretty remarkable to see how the passing of one animal really has an impact on the entire barnyard.
I don't know. See, I'm listening to this, and of course, we appreciate Carolina, and I'm still taking in the lactating part, but it just, is this some sort of, because from the past 2 seasons that we've kind of come together, your barnyard is giving us a slight prediction of how things kind of go. We had the return of Billy, and I'm just curious, is this another foreshadowing? We'll see.
Well, I mean, the fact that she died on election day, and so she died like that morning before any results, I was just like, oh, this doesn't,
Carolina come back,
this doesn't bode well. And I mean, I don't necessarily believe that, but I kind of was like, this doesn't, I think this is not good for Stacey, that Carolina gave up the ghost on that day. So who knows? But hopefully, if this is predictive, which I think it is, hopefully things will settle down in both the barnyard and under the government, under the dome, because things are in topsy-turvy, right? We have all new leadership, Lieutenant Governor, Speaker of the House, Pro Tem, like all over, it's all new leadership. So the barnyard of the government has been turned upside down. And you had the passing of Speaker Ralston. And so, again, it's so clear how the passing of one person can change things so significantly and drastically. But in the same ways that I think that the next 3 months, things will settle down at home in the barnyard, I hope that we'll again get our feet underneath us here at the Capitol, and things will begin to settle down, and perhaps we could even do some things bipartisanly that will help make Georgia better.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first. Senator Jackson's wishes for the next few months, and I echo that. I hope that we get a calming that happens, but I'm looking forward to the journey, and I hope that our listeners and our viewers are looking forward to this journey as well. Is there anything you want to share before we move on? Because we got to do the work.
Yeah, so just really quickly, next week we are not in session technically. It'll be budget week. So you'll be hearing on the news, and if you tune in to our equivalent of C-SPAN here at, which is a website, legis.ga.gov. If you tune in, you'll be hearing from all types of agencies across the state of Georgia about their budgetary requests. What do they need in order to operate properly? And so we will not return to session until the following week. So things will be a little calm. I am also on Sunday preaching the Martin Luther King Day service for the Lutherans, the kind of the synod. They do an annual Martin Luther King Day service, and so I have the great privilege of preaching with that for that, and I will be joining the choir that's going to be singing. Are the Trey Clegg Singers, who are this incredible choir that's multiracial. It's LGBTQ and straight. It is the beloved community. Okay. And their music is amazing. So I'm looking forward to Sunday service with the Lutherans, our kindred, and having a really great weekend of celebrating and remembering who Dr. King was and the ways that he called us to work for a world where we are beloved to one another.
Okay. Well, Senator Jackson, thank you for not only inviting me into this space physically, but inviting our viewers and listeners into this space as well. And we're looking forward to another session with you, just to continue to follow your journey along the way. So that said, you've been listening to or tuning into another episode of God, Goats, and Government.
Until next time, like, subscribe, and follow us on social media at Kim for Georgia. Be easy, y'all.